dark, icy cell reeked of death. 10-year-old Melanie sat quietly inside. Outside, the heavy thud of military boots echoed down the corridor. Melanie didn't even blink. She calmly stood and settled into a wheelchair. 2 heavily armed soldiers entered the cell. Without a word, they strapped Melanie's hands, feet, and neck tightly with thick leather restraints. They weren't treating her like a child. They were treating her like the most dangerous weapon imaginable. The soldiers pushed her wheelchair through the long hallways of the underground military base and into a classroom.
Morning, class.
Good morning.
Several other children were already there, each strapped into a wheelchair the same way. Armed soldiers stood nearby with rifles ready. In this terrifying place, the only trace of kindness came from their teacher, Miss Helen Justineau. Helen treated the children with warmth and patience. Melanie was her favorite student. She was incredibly intelligent and had a vivid imagination. When the class ended, the soldiers immediately wheeled the children back to their dark cells. From the outside, the kids looked perfectly normal. But at night, the truth came out. Metal trays filled with live worms were slid into their cells. The children's eyes lit up. They lunged forward, devouring the worms like starving animals. The next day in class, the mood felt lighter. Helen smiled and said, "Creative writing time. Who wants to share their story?" Melanie's hand shot up instantly. She began telling a beautiful story about a princess, a brave knight, and hope. Her words were so heartfelt that Helen became emotional. She walked over and gently placed her hand on Melanie's head. Suddenly, the classroom door slammed open. Sergeant Parks stormed in. "Did you touch her?" he shouted. Helen froze. Sergeant Parks angrily wiped the E-blocker cream from his skin. The moment the human scent spread through the room, chaos exploded. All the children's jaws snapped open. Their eyes turned blood red. Even though they were strapped down, they lunged violently toward the sergeant. They were hungries, zombie-like creatures infected by a parasitic fungus. Sergeant Parks quickly reapplied the blocking cream, masking his scent again. Instantly, the children calmed down. That night, Helen secretly went to Melanie's cell. Melanie was still tightly strapped down. The soldiers had shown no mercy and left the child bound to the chair. Helen began loosening the belts, but then Melanie caught the scent of her teacher. Her muscles tensed. "Teacher, please run. I don't want to hurt you," Melanie whispered desperately. But the hunger took over. Melanie suddenly lunged at her. Helen barely escaped and rushed outside, quickly applying the blocker cream to hide her scent. The next morning, soldiers took Melanie to the laboratory. Outside the base, thousands of hungries were pressing against the walls. Gunfire echoed everywhere. Inside Dr. Caldwell's lab, Melanie noticed a glass jar labeled Specimen 13. Inside the jar floated a child's brain. It was her friend, the one who had been missing from class for days. Now she understood the horrifying truth. They had killed him. Dr. Caldwell picked up a syringe. "Your turn," she said coldly. At that exact moment, Helen burst into the room holding a gas cylinder. "You're not touching her!" Suddenly, alarms blared across the base. The outer walls collapsed as a massive wave of hungries poured inside. Screams and gunfire filled the air. In the chaos, Melanie freed herself. The hungries ignored her. She smelled like them. She even saved Helen from 2 soldiers, ripping their throats apart. Then she collapsed, unconscious. Helen lifted Melanie into her arms. Moments later, Sergeant Parks arrived with a Humvee. Helen, Sergeant Parks, Dr. Caldwell, and Melanie escaped the base together. Inside the vehicle, Sergeant Parks kept his rifle pointed directly at Melanie. Dr. Caldwell said quietly, "She might be humanity's last hope." During their journey, 1 soldier was killed by hungries. The rest eventually reached the ruined city of London on foot. The streets were filled with hungries, standing completely still, like statues. The group applied the blocker cream and carefully walked among them. Inside an abandoned building, Dr. Caldwell finally revealed the truth. "You're a second-generation infected," she told Melanie. "Your brain still works like a human's. If I remove your brain, we might be able to create a vaccine." The next morning, Melanie volunteered to clear a path. She injured a stray dog and let it run away. The hungries chased after it, leaving the streets empty. But when they stepped outside, they saw something terrifying. Massive fungal plants towered above the ruins, swollen with huge seed pods. Dr. Caldwell panicked. If those pods burst, humanity is finished. The group took shelter inside an old solar research facility, but a pack of wild infected children attacked them there and killed one of the soldiers. Melanie fought their leader and defeated him. When she returned to the lab, she saw something horrifying. Dr. Caldwell had released poisonous gas. Sergeant Parks and Helen were lying on the floor, unconscious. The gas had no effect on Melanie. She looked at Dr. Caldwell and quietly asked, "Am I alive?" "Yes," the doctor replied. Melanie spoke calmly. "Then this world doesn't belong to you anymore." She locked the doctor inside the room. Outside, the wild infected children tore Dr. Caldwell apart. Melanie then walked to one of the giant fungal plants and set it on fire. The pods burst open, releasing billions of spores into the air. Sergeant Parks had already been infected. He handed Melanie his pistol. "I don't want to turn into one of them. Please, end it." Melanie pulled the trigger. The next morning, the sun rose over a new world. Inside the sealed laboratory, Helen was safe. On the other side of the glass, Melanie sat with hundreds of wild infected children. They now saw her as their leader. Helen switched on the speaker system. "Today we're going to learn how to read, and tomorrow we'll build something better." The fungus had conquered the earth, but humanity still lived on, inside these children.